Alright guys, well, today's video, I'm not sure where I'm going to put this clip in at, but we're going to take the old 89 Celeb and we're going to take and put brand new rubber tires on it. Oh yeah, it definitely needs them. Look how bad the cracks are. Yeah, that's not safe. Don't need that coming apart. Another thing is the car came factory with 185/70/14, if I'm not mistaken, for this one because it has JA2 brakes. And the front has 195/70/14 Goodwrench. I mean, Goodwrench is a good brand, nothing against it. However, the back two tires are brand new, at least this one is. And you can tell the rubber on that sucker. Oh yeah, ready to go to the drag strip and burn that off. 185/65/14. Okay, that's a big drop difference. You can't do that on these, or any vehicle for that matter, because you'll throw everything off. Transmission, speedometer, everything. And this is a 185/65/14 too, but this one's used, but it still has good tread. Let's see, it's a Iron Man tire, radial RB12. Okay. And then we have another 195/70/14, and this one's a radial RP18 by Westlake. So you can see the crack in the tire. The tread's gone. There's not really any tread. The car does pull to one side, and I have a feeling it's the tires themselves. One of them went flat when I first got this thing. Brought it home. I don't remember which one it was, but the camera's not wanting to focus today, of course. Anyway, I want to go ahead and get the new rubber put on the car because, well, it's mismatch, and I don't want to keep driving it like that because it's not good for the transmission. So the new tires are in the back. They're Douglas all season 195/75/14. That's what's going on it. I actually currently have 195/70/14 on the Eurosport, so I don't want to go any bigger than that. Main reason is you can't really see it because the camera don't want to focus, but the strut tower sits so low, and when you hit bumps or something like that, the tire will come in contact with the bottom of the strut bracket brace. At least that one does some, and that's the factory tire size that's on it. This one came different. So anyway, let's fire it up, and after 2 weeks of sitting, by the way, I had a transmission issue with this thing. Come to find out, all it was the torque converter lockup solenoid switch was bad, and I unplugged it and the problem went away. I was driving the car, overdrive worked, I come to a stop at a stop sign, I was sitting there, the car started running funny and then it just died. I tried to fire it back up, it fired right back up, put it back into gear, and it died again. And this repeatedly went on for 30 minutes at least. Reverse, drive, 1, 2, or 3, it didn't matter what gear you put it in. As soon as you put it in a gear, the car would die. So I went around and unplugged that guy right there. Connector for it's blue. Goes inside the transmission for the lockup, so you'll have overdrive. It's a 3-speed automatic. And, well, when I unplugged it, it still didn't change anything. And so, luckily I was on a hill. I coasted the car in neutral, fired it up, put it in drive, and took off. I had to keep it going all the way home or it would have never made it. As soon as I got home, pulled it in the driveway, and stopped, the engine died. I let it cool off the next day or two, come back out here, fired it back up, put it in reverse and drive, and it's fine now. So evidently that switch had stuck locked or something, so it's keeping the torque converter locked in all the time, and it was taking too much strain off the engine itself. So every time I would put it in gear, it would just cut out. But that was kind of a pain in the butt to diagnose, but it's fixed now. It just won't have overdrive anymore, just stay unplugged. My 85 Celebrity had issues with it, it stayed unplugged, and I never had problems out of the transmission. I don't know the exact exhaust setup. I don't know if the catalytic converter is gutted or not, but my gracious, that sounds so aggressive, and I love it. So mean. So touchy. Alright, let's get going. You can see when I let go of the wheel, it kind of goes to the left just a bit. And it does shake when you get up to certain speeds, somewhere around 65 or so, and I have a feeling it's probably because of the tires. Has to be. I'm almost there, so shouldn't be too much longer. Doing 50 now, it's alright, but as soon as you get about 65 miles an hour, it starts shaking like crazy. Another thing too, the temperature. The temperature is going way up when I'm going down the road, and it shouldn't do that. Yeah, see, now it's going to the left. Real strange. Hopefully the tires will fix that issue. We'll see. Well, the new tires are on. This thing is riding flawlessly. I cannot believe the difference. I mean, I got to, I'm doing it, but just the thoughts of this. The handling's better from side to side. It rides so daggum smooth. Man, new tires is like everything to a vehicle. Especially if they're mismatched like they were. It tears everything up. It just changes everything. It does pull a little bit to the right, it seems. It could be tie rod or just alignment issue, you know. I was hoping that it would take care of that with the new tires, but hey, it did take care of the vibration issue and the wobbling that I had, and now it's really, really smooth and the handling's better, but definitely more in the works. So now it's time to get it back to the shop and tear into it. What else it needs to be done to the car. Alright guys, so now we're back at you with the 89 Celebrity. I'm going to cut this into the other video of getting the tires and stuff done. From that point of what you just seen of getting the tires and stuff done, this is somewhere around about a month or so later, and I've had issues with getting parts, and it's because of everything that's going on right now. You know, as you all know, I'm not going in detail with that stuff, but trying to get parts is not easy, and the older the vehicles you got, you know, the harder it is. You know, it's an 89, but the issue is it's not like it was 5-10 years ago where I could get more parts easier. It's getting harder and harder as the years, you know, each year progress. Like the littlest things, like certain sensors, like say this guy right here, I can't even get this sensor that goes into the radiator. Good luck getting that. You have to go to the junkyard to get it. It's a low coolant temperature sensor for the radiator to make the light come on to say you got low coolant. My 87 has the same thing. So anyway, without that, got the new radiator. It showed up finally. Let's see, I got to get the radiator out, so I got some other parts for it. I've already done off camera brand new serpentine belt tensioner, the belt, and the power steering pump. Done all that. That's all done, and re-cleaned and washed the engine bay. So that part is done. There's no more squeaking and no more noise coming from the tensioner. It does have the misfire still at idle, which I have determined to be the lower intake manifold gasket that's failed. So what I'm going to do is take it to a buddy of mine that does vehicles as well. I trust him. He can go further in depth with that, because you have to remove both valve covers for one, front and back, the alternator, power steering pump, the upper intake, the lower intake, the push rods have to come out, and the rocker arm nuts have to be loosened and taken out in order to get all this out, because the gaskets sit in between that, behind it, and you got to take all that out and set the preload back. And I don't know exactly how to do that per se, so he's going to do that for me. He'll knock that out. So we'll get that done and squared away. I doubt I'll get on any of that on camera, but so we'll get that fixed. I have brake pads for it. I have brake hoses for it for the front. The brake hoses in the front are shot. They're dry cracked. Thermostat, that's whenever we do the radiator. Front transmission mount on the driver's side's got to be done. This is the old belt tensioner, but there's the part number for it. And this is the top dog bone mount that I've already replaced. Just like that. And there is the part number for that guy. So, this has already been done. Numerous of other things, but at the end of every bit of this, whenever the thing is done, detailed, whatever, I will go over everything I've done to the vehicle. I've posted a lot of stuff that I've done to this car, as well as others from this era of 2.8, 3.1, whatever, that's on the channel. Go check those out. The videos are on there. So, to get this radiator out, there is 1, 2, 3, 4 10mm bolts. Then you have the upper 10mm bolt to take the radiator fan out. One here, and then there's one straight down in this position, a 10mm, straight down in that position. There's 4 for the cooling fan. Once you do that, just wiggle it, the whole cooling fan comes out. But you can't do that like I can. You got to go underneath, pull the tab out, and unplug the cooling fan, and then that's done. Then while that's happening, before we get into anything else of taking all this apart, I want to go ahead and start draining the coolant. Get that out of there. It's nasty. It needs to be changed anyway. I've got fresh coolant for it, and distilled water. So while I was under here, I noticed, oh look, this bullcrap. They had this to the bottom to hold this all on. It's broken half, but what I'm going to do, instead of having this, because you can see it when you're looking at the car in the pictures or underneath, is zip tie it and actually put 2 bolts in it, because there's supposed to be a bolt right here that goes straight through. The hole doesn't look stripped, so I can put a bigger one on it if I have to. Put one in there, and then there's one in the bottom right here that's supposed to go in to hold it on, so I'm going to do that. And then the rest of it I'm going to zip tie and put it all together. But there is overspray, I noticed, on the heater core, the condenser, which tells me this thing has been repainted 1 time in its life at least, which is actually really immaculate. It's a really pretty color. But anyway, besides all that, I crawl underneath to come under here and noticed the radiator hose. It's kind of squishy. That's not good. Then I went to go squeeze it to take it off, or to, check it, and noticed that it was loose. I've driven this thing a few times down the road on interstate, and it's amazing that this has not popped. This is the original cooling hose, but check this out. It's supposed to be tightened. Literally, I can wiggle the hose off. So I'm just going to pull this off and let it drain since it's already loose, because fighting that guy right there is not going to work. The actual peacock at the bottom that you're supposed to use, and plus it's where I'm laying at, so I'm just going to pull the bottom radiator hose off and let it drain out. Alright, so that's undone, and I just took a whole freaking bath in that stuff, so that's awesome. And it was pretty nasty. Kind of stinks, smells like cat pee. So yeah, it's not as green as it should be, so it definitely needs to be flushed and changed. There's probably a lot of buildup inside the radiator anyway. Somebody's changed it before. This is not the original radiator, but it does leak right here is the main reason I'm changing it. There's a lot of corrosion around the coolant or the transmission lines where they go in, and if these leak out here, it could possibly leak on the inside, and if it mixes coolant in the transmission, then transmission will be done. So okay, so you got to loosen 4 1 2 3 and 4 13mm bolts, and then I've already replaced this mount, but you've got to loosen, it's a 15mm nut and bolt on each side. Loosen it just a little bit, so whenever you raise this whole piece up like so, it can just raise up and goes toward the motor and lay right there, because you have to remove it in order to get this cover off so you can get the radiator out. And this just pulls off. Make sure you keep the little grommets that are in here, and just lay that to the side somewhere. Yeah, it's definitely been replaced. Made in Canada. Huh. So these are usually 1/2 inch, I believe, is the size. Use line wrench. Don't use nothing else but a line wrench, or you'll strip it. Half inch line wrench. Just like so. That one's loose. Get the bottom on. Come on. There's stuck, buddy. Alright, gotta go ahead and get this top radiator hose off and get the overflow hose off. Unplug the sensor, and then once we get the lines out, get the hose off, get that hose off, then the whole radiator will come right out. And just like I did with the flash, radiator is out. Trinity fluid looked pretty good. However, the hoses do not, the cooler hoses. So I'm going to go to the parts store and grab 2 hoses. Looks like they're the factory ones. They still got the part numbers written on them. And go ahead and change those out, because they could have blockages on the inside. They could deteriorate over time and send that stuff straight to the transmission, which you don't want. So I'm going to change those hoses, because I actually did that on my Celebrity and it made the transmission a lot better with shifting and stuff. So while I'm in here, might as well. I mean, it's already apart. So I'm going to get 2 hoses. I got to get a radiator cap, because the radiator cap's busted. And what else is it? Might as well go ahead and change this transmission mount, since I got more access to it now, and get that bad boy out. May do that off camera, may not. And get the other radiator set up, and we'll put it together. Alright, so the new hoses are on. Went to the parts store today, got those done. So those are done. There's a bolt or clamp down to where they should be. And if you get it confused, your top line that comes from the transmission goes to the top line of the radiator. Bottom line goes to the bottom line, to the radiator, to the bottom line of the transmission that's down here. Both clamps are back on. New radiator hose is on for the bottom. I didn't do the top one. It seems to be okay. It needs to be replaced. I might as well go grab one. I should have done that today, but it is kind of mushy, and they had it in stock. That took a day to get here, so or a day and a half anyway. So so now this has got to be and this is the sensor that came out. Somebody's replaced the sensor before in the radiator that I'm about to show you, which would be that guy right there. It's a brand new sensor. This is your, like I said before, your low coolant sensor that throws the light on, says, hey, your coolant's too low. Yeah, that's the sensor. Somebody changed it when they put this radiator in, because it's, like I said, it's not factory, and they snapped the sensor off, because it's very, very easy to break these off. And if it does that, you're screwed. The only place it's got it is a junkyard, which is slim to none, because the only ones I've seen that had this sensor was Oldsmobiles, whether it be the 3.3, 3.1, 2.8, Celebrity, Cavalier, Buick Century, Chevy. Well, no, Chevy Lumina doesn't have these. They're different. They actually have a sensor that goes in the side of the radiator with a 4 or 3 wire connector. It's a 15 millimeter. Actually, it's probably a 14, but I'm using a 15. Somebody's already been in here, so it wasn't too tight. And when you put this back together, I'm going to show you in just a second. You got to be very careful to not break this sensor. It's all plastic. Ew. Look at the mud and stuff that come off of that thing. And even the threads are plastic, so you definitely want to be careful with this. Looks about right. Ooh, it even has caps on it. Sweet. I can use those. Meaning those little guys, the yellow caps. Those are awesome to have, so when you're doing other work on other vehicles, you have those to block off fluids that don't leak. Or so they don't leak. Want to make sure it doesn't have holes in it. And then it's not beat up. I waited quite a bit long for this little guy to show up. Yeah, these caps right here, these are awesome to have. So it has some things that I don't have on the other one that I noticed here. Radiator is a little different. So this is going to come out for the sensor. I don't know why this is here, but I got to find some kind of cap to cap this off. So I'm going to have to go back to the parts store because I can't fill it up with coolant tonight. Awesome. Great. Wished I'd have known that ahead of time. This is supposed to have been already capped off with something, because my Celebrity came with a cap and a clamp already, if I'm not mistaken, when I replaced it. But here we got an extra cap for something else. Hopefully the sensor screws in that hole. Oh, and it even comes with a... Wait a minute. Haha. There's the cap I was talking about. Yeah, so it did come with one. Awesome. And it comes with a clamp. Sweet. So I don't have to spend that $5 or $3 on a hose. So there's that. These come out because you're not going to use these. You're going to use this instead. So you might as well just take these out and throw these in the drawer. You're not going to need them. Save them for something else. They do have O-rings on them, but I may use the O-rings. If yours has these, go ahead and take the O-rings out. Put them in this hole, because I'm going to guarantee you they're going to leak without the O-rings in there. I am going to put Teflon tape around the threads of the transmission cooler lines when I put them together, just so it's an extra band-aid, or not band-aid, but caution to keep it from leaking, because yeah, I don't want it to leak. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get this together and put it in the car. Yep, screws right in, and it is a 14 millimeter or 9/16, whatever you want to use. You want to make sure that's good and snug, but you don't want to go too crazy because, like I said, this is all plastic. You break that, you're done. Or you strip the threads out. I only go through so many steps, guys, because a lot of you that are watching that I'm not really doing a how-to video for, you know, or just doing it for, don't know what they're doing when it comes to doing this stuff. Some people don't know a lot of the things you need to know, so that's why I kind of go over and beyond of telling you about certain things not to over tighten, or what you should do and what you should not do. So anyway, you want to make sure these little grommets right here are still inside the radiator support, both sides, because the radiator's got to sit right into those slots on both ends. So I'm going to set the camera up and get the radiator set in. This is a little bit more difficult when you don't have enough light. Is this radiator wider? This is not wanting to fit. This is a little bit wider, apparently. There it goes. So daggone much stuff in the way. Be able to do something, huh? Try not to make this so long. Now, before I put these lines in, I gotta put those O-rings in. And I gotta put the bottom hose on, tighten the clamp down. Don't forget the little one wire for the sensor. I gotta put the hose on and clamp that down. I got a new radiator cap for it. Gotta put the overflow back on. I need to order a radiator hose and some stuff. There's the part number for your radiator cap. 7616, Duralast brand. It was like 10, 12 bucks. Here's the new one. Here's the old one. You can see there's no gasket material left. It leaked. Most certainly upgrading this car with the radiator and nasty fluid that it had in it. I'm not putting any radiator fluid in it at the moment. I still got to put the thermostat in it, and I'll probably do that off camera. All it is 2 bolts. You remove the upper nut, and they're both 13, 13, 13, and then after you remove this top nut, remove the bracket, there's another 13mm bolt like that, and then the whole thermostat comes up. So the little dummy hose, cap off part with a clamp, that's done. Sensor's done. Bottom radiator hose is done, tightened. Upper hose is on. Cooler hoses are tight. Got to put the radiator fan in, put the cover back on, put the motor mount back on, and then I can move on to the thermostat. And then I got to get that transmission mount swapped out. And there's something else I'm forgetting. Alright, so everything's back together except for the radiator fan. I'm not putting that in yet until I fire it up tomorrow when it's daylight and it ain't, 2 in the morning, because this thing is loud with the exhaust that's on it. So I want to make sure that these lines do not leak first before I put the fan in it, because you can't get room in there to get to those lines. And then we'll go from there. Put coolant in it, bleed the system, and drive it. I may go ahead and do the engine mount, thermostat, radiator hose off camera, just so I can hurry up and get it done, because I got some other stuff to do to the car, like front brake pads and hoses. Alright, and just like that with a flash, everything is back together. And So, radiator's done. Both upper and lower radiator hoses are done. Thermostat's swapped out, and I put back in the factory 195 Fahrenheit thermostat. And it's a fail-safe brand, so if it ever fails, it's supposed to stay stuck open and not stuck closed. You know, it is, you know, kind of iffy on that. It's the same thermostat I got in my car, so and mine does fine. So the radiator fan's back in. There's no leaks from the cooler, hoses for the transmission. Everything's good. I did the bottom transmission mount in the front. That's a piece of cake. Took 30 minutes at the most. My other car's got every one of the engine mounts replaced. So, yeah. I did fill it up with some coolant. It's not completely full, but it is got some in it, so I can run it. And that needs to be bled, but on top of that needs to be done, I've got to get it off of these ramps and put it back on the ground, and then put it on jack stands, because I got to do the front brake pads. And probably, well, I know I got to do the brake hoses, but I don't know if I need to do the pads or not. We'll find out when I get it all taken apart. So let's go ahead and fire it up. That's not the correct time. It sucked it on down. So nice with that brand new belt on there. Here's the underneath. It looks a little bit better now. There's 2 bolts in it for the splash shield or dust shield bottom skirt, if you want to call it that. It's still cracked, but I've got it zip tied here. There's 2 zip ties here in the middle, and then there's 2 bolts holding it together. That is not going anywhere. That is sturdy as could be. So, looks a lot better, tucked away and nice, versus the ratchet strap that somebody put on there that looks stupid. There's the engine mount I replaced. Everything else looks pretty good under here. It does need a bath. Some oil leakage everywhere, but we'll take care of that at the car wash. Get it all cleaned up and fix all that. Right into gear. Whew. Feel a little bit more jerky now that the engine mount's replaced. Brakes are so daggum touchy. As soon as you, I mean, like you just. And it's the rear that's doing it. I know for a fact it's definitely the rear brakes. Does the motor still move? Is the question. No, not really. Yeah, it doesn't reverse. More likely it's going to need a rear transmission mount, but I am not going to do that, guy, because that is a pain to do without a lift. So until it actually becomes a really major issue, I'm not going to touch that one. Alright, so the driver's side is done. New hose, because the other one, well, it's seen better days. Look at the cracks on that. Yeah, that's shot. That would pop any minute. Yeah, even the part on the inside's about to go. So, even when I disconnected it, there was barely any fluid coming out of the end of that hose. And the inside of this caliper is disgusting. So it's going to be flushed. The whole brake system needs to be flushed. It is not pretty in there. It's black. So I done that. I've not bled this side yet. I already went in and put in brand new brake pads. The other ones were shot. There wasn't much meat left, especially the outer pad. You know, before it started to start squilling, which is going to be soon. But they kind of pretty much didn't even wear, so I don't see any problems with the brake caliper or nothing. So that's a good thing. I did grease the slide pins really good. And don't hate me when I say that. It's not grease, it's silicone paste. Don't use grease when you try to lubricate the slide pins for the caliper. Use grease, you'll screw it up. So, anyway, this side's done for the most part, besides bleeding. We gotta do the other side. And if you're curious, here's the driver's side brake hose number, 77338. That is AutoZone brand. So, first thing I'm going to do is lubricate the daggum line here. So you don't want that popping. This side don't have no rust on it like the other side does. Kind of weird. I believe we have a bad CV joint. Might as well go ahead and lubricate this. Need to test this first, because if this don't come out of the caliper, we're gonna have a bad day and a bad time getting it fixed. If you don't get this out, you gotta change the hose, and you can't get the air out of this because this is messed up. So I need to take a brush, really, and scrub around this real quick. It's a 10mm if you was wondering. Probably should use 1/4 inch, but it's lubricated, it's clean. Let's see if it'll knock loose without snapping off. We got lucky. See fluid coming out of it, so it's probably either clogged up or the hose is shot the same way, because the hose at the top's got some serious rub marks from the tire or something, more likely. Here it comes. It is nasty. Brake fluid should not look like that. That is very dark. Well, at least we know it's clean, or actually it's got fluid through it. Let's see. Make sure to get this loose. It's 11mm. Usually, I don't have a socket in that size, or at least I don't feel like going looking for it. So I'm gonna take this and this, hook it together, and there you go. You got a long extension, more leverage, if you will, to knock it loose. Just like so. Yep. There we go. She's really leaking now. Yeah. This has got way more flow than the other side did. It doesn't pull her either way when you would stop the brakes, but this is definitely going to help. And flushing it out, I'm just going to let it, drain, because that fluid's really nasty. Right up here's the rub mark that's on it. Let's see. It is a 12mm for the bottom of the line, but let's see, righty tighty, lefty loosey. If this don't get it, then Yeah, it ain't supposed to turn. Guess we're gonna use vice grips because I don't chance that. I don't want to snap off the line. I don't feel like putting a new line on it. Usually I wait to take these out, but C-clip holds the brake hose in its place. Is really all it does. Get this. So. Somebody's put this in its wrong place, so I gotta get something to hold the top still. The top one is a 5/8. Man, that felt really, really great. My back of my wrist, it's hurting now, went right into this guy. That felt great. But at least the line's loose now. Start loosening this. Alright, so gotta get the caliper off. It's basically called a Torx bit. Looks like this. This is a little chewed up, but it'll work. Inside here, and one at the bottom. The size is Torx bit T50. T50 is the size. Should not be that tight. That is way, way too tight. Either something's gonna break. My Lanza. That should have never been that tight. Sheesh. I'm gonna have to get another bit. Come on, buddy. Definitely been a while since this has been touched. Some nasty fluid. I'm pouring out of that caliper. And brake pads on this guy is pretty much the same even wear, so that's a good thing. .13mm nut holds the hose on. Alright, we're going to need one of these, or you can use a C-clamp, whatever you want to do. But since I already have the hose off, what I'm going to do is push this piston back in so I can put the new pads in. Hopefully you can hear me over the fan that's blowing next to the phone and doesn't ruin all this sound that I'm doing for you. Anyway, so as I do that, all the nasty fluid's going to come shooting out of this hole. Might as well do it now before I put the new hose together and send all that stuff back up through the line into the master cylinder, which I don't want to do. Hopefully. maybe there's no more fluid in there. It's gonna need a caliper eventually. The boot's ripped right here. But for now, I guess it's gonna work. But yeah, it's definitely gonna need a caliper. So, just like so. There you go. Brake pad's installed. Now I'm going to take these slide pins out. They should come out without any effort. Should, I said. And they're seized, which will cause brake issues. So let me get something and knock these out. Here's the stuff you want to use. Don't use nothing else. And there's your part number. Camera would focus. You can pause that and read it. But it's the only stuff I use for the slide pins on any brake caliper. Got some wear on it, but this should move freely as well. You don't need much. I don't have much left anyway, but that's really all you need. See, the inside of the hole is pretty much clean. And just stick it back in there, just like that. And put the access on the other side, whatever. But sometimes I put some in there, that way it pushes out the other end and gets the rest of the other stuff that's in there out. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Throw the caliper back on. Here's part number for this side. Don't forget these. If you notice, one end is like flatter than the other, so to speak. Usually what I like to do is, let's see here, this is going to go this way. Let's take the one that's the flattest facing downward, because it's going to go to the caliper this way. I always try to put the hose and stuff on first. The reason I do that is that way it's not connected to the one that's above, and it's not draining fluid all the way down this hose and this end and messing this up from sealing correctly. Not only that, it doesn't soak my hands full of fluid trying to screw this in. Nice and snug. Put it in its little place. You can actually slide this up. Some or downward, and then put this in. You ever wanted to know how I bleed brakes by myself? That's this right here. Pittsburgh used fluid reservoir, brake fluid bleeder. Pretty much, if you got an air compressor connected to the line, pull this trigger and it sucks the fluid through this line into this reservoir. Or if you don't have one, you can still use this. You can either put it, open it in open position, lock it, take the other hose end, put it on the end of it, go over the inside of the car and pump the brakes. All the fluid will come out of here and no air will go back into the system because you already have fluid in here. So that's what I'm going to do. So as you can see, it's already coming through. Now I can already tell the brake pedal's already got a really firm hard to it, so I believe the brakes are bled. I do this so it's clean, that way if it ever starts to leak I can tell. And I'll wipe it down with a rag before it dries. And then after I do that, if you're good enough to have one of these still on the vehicle, it's being an 89, it's a dust cap for the bleeder valve. Highly recommended and needed, because if it didn't have that, those would have never unscrewed. And it's looking a little bit better. I can fill it up to the proper level and leave it. Done. So, lots of other things to fix on the car is the horn. The horn doesn't work. About bashed my head into the hood when I hooked up the horn to find out that it does work. In fact, that it is stuck on all the time. So, my suspicion is under this cover. So I took this off, and sure enough, the little spring was hooked up like it's supposed to be, but this was all wrapped up laying here. So it was making contact with the metal, which was grounding it out, which is what makes the noise, or the actual horn, work. This is supposed to be tucked all the way down into this. It has notches in it. You're supposed to go down and turn, but the plastic in here, as you can tell, is broke. So this is not going to stay. Whoever had this steering wheel off before, which I know they've been in here because, for one, this is messed up. Secondly, I don't believe these screws are the correct ones. Mine were never this color. But anyway, it's going to have another plastic piece. And in order to fix that, I have to take the steering wheel off. So I'll have to go to the junkyard, find another plastic piece that slides into that little groove, and swap it out for another one. And then that should fix the issue of the horn not working. But for now, I can at least put all this crap back together until I get the other piece I'm missing. Another thing, you don't need keys. Apparently, it works without all that. So, yeah, That's cool. Alright, it's daylight again. I went and picked up this awesome fuel gauge for 10 bucks. It's brand new, supposedly. It's at a place that sells things off of like bulk pallets, and they sell each thing cheap at a redone store, stuff that's from Amazon, whatever, that's returns, whatever. And I got a fuel pressure gauge because, well, I've been needing one, and the one that I have that I bought from Harbor Freight don't fit these that well, and they don't have a pressure relief valve on it like this has got. And I want to check the fuel pressure just so I know what one is supposed to be like when it's healthy and running, so when I have issues with that one or any one of the others that I ever get, I can actually test the fuel pressure. Because renting one of these suckers is like $150 from a parts store, which you get the money back, but you know, if you don't have the $150, you just go rent it, you know, you're crap out of luck. So I want to turn it on, prime it, fire it up, and I gotta bleed the cooling system too, because that's the last thing to do. First time turning the key, and what is that, 41? Yeah. A little lower than I expected, but I guess that's normal. About 38 psi. Yeah, 38. So that's not bad. That's what the, if I'm not mistaken, that's what the Chevy Lumina is, the same fuel pressure. So I'm guessing that's normal for these. I can actually feel the injector pulse through this hose. So, I'm going to go over the things really quick, summer this up. I got the car, didn't run or drive. It's a dead battery. And he didn't know what was wrong with it. He thought it was a fuel pump. Put it back, charged the battery, fired it up, got it to run, and it runs. But it misfired really, really bad. So, it went from changing plugs, wires, all three ignition coils, ignition control module, crank sensor, knock sensor, serpentine belt, power steering belt, tensioner, radiator, upper and lower radiator hoses, thermostat, air filter, throttle position sensor, idle control valve, coolant temperature sensor, EGR valve, front brakes, front pads, and tires, a good bath, injectors, because injectors were shot completely. It still has a stumble, which is the lower intake manifold, so I got to get that fixed. That's the last thing to do before it returns back to the customer. But I believe that's going to do it for this video, because it's already this long. I didn't really want it to be this long. Hopefully you're watching, you're enjoying this long hour of content. Everybody loves these celebrities. I do too, but I can't always produce these videos because there's other things I work on besides these, but not a lot of people want to watch anything else except for this content. So anyway, if you like this video, you have any questions or comments, leave them in the bottom. I'll try my best to get to them. Like, share, subscribe. Guys, there's a lot of you that are out there watching these videos that are not subscribed or have the notification bell on, so every time I upload you get the notification. I don't know what's going on, if it's YouTube or if it's just y'all. If you want to see more on this car, because there will be another video to this of me detailing it. I'm actually going to compound it, wax it, everything, the whole 9 yards, and make this thing shiny as could be, like it was off the showroom floor when I get done. So, like I said, I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed all this content, you know, none of this was boring to you. And subscribe and share. Tell your friends, family, etc. Thanks for watching, guys. I will catch you in the next one. See ya.